Hey, you want to get some food?
Yeah, one sec.
First, we are going to thunk out the splash screen. So when we turn on the app, it does this. Hey, we got a sandwich, and then, hey, great, now it goes to the app. Beautiful. It's exactly what we wanted. Now remember, we set the splash screen to visible and the home screen to non-visible. And to make them switch, we need the clock component. So let's go to the block options for clock, and we are going to select when clock 1.timer. That's over. Yeah. Drop that into the blocks editor. Now remember, the clock component is firing every 3000 milliseconds. That basically means that if you program the clock to do something, it will take 3000 milliseconds to do it. So what we want our app to do is say, hey, clock, tell the splash screen to be non-visible. And again, it's going to take 3000 milliseconds. And then we're going to say, hey, home screen, be visible, so then we can see you. And then we're going to say, okay, clock, thank you very much. Now you can turn off. And if you don't tell the clock to turn off, it's just going to go back and forth between the two screens, which is totally fine if you're into EDM. So let's type in set splash screen dot visible. There we go. Set splash screen dot visible. And this is the block we want. Go ahead and thunk it in. Hey, that was the first thunk of the Advanced App Building Tutorial Series. Good for you. So first we want the app to turn the splash screen off, and we can use logic to say this. So let's go into the logic section, and we are going to grab a false block. Go ahead and thunk that in. When using logic, saying false is kind of like saying no. So after 3000 milliseconds, we are just saying turn the splash screen to non-visible. Thank you. But now we need to turn the home screen to visible. So we can just copy and paste this block combination. Copy and paste. And let's change this block to home screen in the drop-down menu. And let's change this block to say true. Great, go ahead and thunk that in. Good for you. That takes care of the screen. Many people are like, hey, how do you make a splash screen? That's how you do it. It's really cool. So now you can make splash screens for all your friends, if your friends want splash screens. But now we need to tell the clock to turn off, because we don't want it going back and forth. So just type in set clock, and select the setClock1.timer enabled to block. Great. Go ahead and thunk that in. Now, are we going to use true or false to turn the timer off? Darn right. Let's copy and paste a false. Great work. Thunk that in. Cool. This next part is awesome. We basically have 3 scores that we want to record in this game. The current score, your personal high score, and the highest score ever recorded from anyone who has the app. Now, we don't know what these numbers will be. I have no idea if you're going to be good or bad at this game. So what we need to do is create variables for each of these scores. And we're going to set them to 0. And again, a variable is if you don't know what something's going to be, you can just set it to be a variable. And then you can update it as you go. So go to the block options for variables. Variables, over here. We are going to get the initialize global name block. That's over here. Go ahead and drop that into the blocks editor. And let's copy and paste this 2 times. So we'll have 3 in total. 1, 2, 3. Very good. And now we just need to name each one. And we are going to name each one the exact name of the scores that they represent. So let's call the first one current score. Current score. And now let's call the second one high score. High score. High score. And let's call the third one game high score. Game high score. So make sure these are all spelled the exact same way that you wrote them before. And again, I have no idea what these scores will be. Let's just have them start at 0. So type in 0, boop, 0. That's the block we want. Let's copy and paste it, so we have zeros for each of the scores. Great, thunk them all in. Thunk, 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 0. Nice. So now it's time to set up how these scores get updated when you get points. This game starts on screen 1 of your app. So let's go to the block options for screen 1 over meow. Hello. And let's get in when screen 1.initialize do block. Here it is. Have you found it? Go ahead and put that in the blocks editor. So what does this block do? This block says when the screen starts up, what should it do? Well, first we want to tell the app how to set the high score. So type in set global high score, set global high score, and here we go. This is the block we want. Go ahead and thunk that in. Oh, excuse me. I ate a lot of sushi for dinner. Now the TinyDB. Hello, TinyDB. This is going to store the information about the high score right on your phone. How about that? So we want to call the TinyDB. So type in call tiny, and select the block that says call tinydb1.getValue. Yeah. Go ahead and thunk that into the high score block. Now this opening, it's asking for a tag. We've done tags before. Basically, a tag just gives a name to what it represents. So we can, let's give it a name. Let's type in text. Now we've got a text block. Go ahead and thunk that in. So what is this database for? It's to basically keep track of the high score, to store the values. So let's just type in high score. Nice. And if you're starting a new game and you've never played before, the high score is going to be 0. So where it says value, if tag not there, hey, we're just going to put a 0 because the game hasn't been played and there are no values from the database. So type in 0, one more time, 0, and go ahead and thunk that in. Nice thunk. And we need to also update the text of the high score label. So we've stored the information. Now we need to say, hey, information, go to the label. So what are we going to do? Type in set high score label. Set high score label. Great. And we want the option that says set high score label dot text to. Nice. That's over. Yeah. Go ahead and thunk that in. And again, we don't know what the score needs to be updated to. If you're really good at this game, maybe you have like 500 points. If you're really bad, maybe you got like 4 points. I don't know. But basically, we need to say, set the label to whatever this high score variable is. And on our app, if you remember, we wrote high score : so what we need to do is basically, we need this text, high score, to be joined with the number that the variable tells us it is. We've done things like this before in other game tutorials. We need 2 things to do this. Type in join. There we go, this block. Go ahead and thunk that in. We need a blank text block now. So we can just copy and paste this one over. Yeah, hello. And again, it needs to match exactly what we wrote in for the high score when we were designing the app. And that was high score : high score : Great work. And we are joining this text with the variable block from the high score. Sorry, sometimes I can't say words. So go to the block options for variables, that's over here, and get a get block, which is over here, and thunk that in. Great. And in the drop-down menu, we just want to select global high score. Great. So now it's going to get this information, and then it's going to send this information. It's going to join these 2 blocks, and then it's going to appear in the label. Nice. This next step is important. When you save your game, your data is saved in the Firebase component, which is a cloud service. And you don't want your information, your data, to be saved with other people's things. So you can basically make your own, we call them project buckets. It's basically just a way to separate your data from other people's data. So here's a little demonstration. Here's my data for game 1. It goes in this bucket. And here's my data for game 2. It goes in this bucket. Basically, that's happening in the cloud. It's really easy to set this up. We just go to the block options for Firebase, and we're going to scroll down all the way to the bottom, and get this set Firebase _ db1.projectBucket2 block. See it? It's over here. Go ahead and thunk that in. Now, we need to give the bucket a name. You can call the bucket whatever you want. You can even use the name that I'm going to use. So first, let's copy and paste a blank text block. Let's get a blank text block and thunk it in. And I'm just going to write in sandwich Pong. Sandwich Pong. Great work. So that's it for the high score. Now we just need to tell the app what to do for the game high score. And again, the game high score is going to look at all the people who have downloaded your app, and whoever has the highest score, that score is going to get sent to the game high score area. Now, let's type in call Firebase. Call Firebase. And from this list, we are going to select the Firebase db1.getValue block. You see it? Go ahead and thunk that in. So the high score again, this is stored locally on your phone, and the game high score, that's stored in the cloud on Firebase. So this is just going to say, get the new value of the game high score and give it a tag so we can categorize this value. So let's copy and paste another blank text block. Go ahead and thunk that in. And for a tag, let's just call this one game high score. Game high score. Great. And if there's no value stored, if the game has never been played before, then the game high score will be 0. So let's just type 0, 0. Nice. And go ahead and put that in. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Great work. Good show. Now, how do we update these scores for Firebase? Well, it's pretty easy. Firebase gets all of these values, all of these scores in real time. So we just need to tell Firebase, hey, when you have a value, do something. So let's type in when Firebase. So when Firebase. And let's select the block that says when Firebase db1.getValue do. See it? Good work. Let's move that over. Yeah. So we need to tell Firebase that when it has this new information for the all-time high score from the different games, it should set that number to be the game high score. So let's go to the variables section. Variables, yay. Grab one of these set blocks. Go ahead and we're going to thunk it in over. Good show. And in this drop down, let's select game high score. Great. Just over here. Now, what should we set the game high score to? Again, it's a trick question. Nobody knows. But Firebase will tell you the value. So just hover over where it says value and get a get value block and thunk it in. Good show. Good for you. And now we just need to update the game high score label. So again, this is very similar to what we did before. First, we get the data, we store it in a certain way, and we update it. And now we have to say, hey, make sure that you tell the label what the new score is. So type in set game high score, and select the block that says set game high score label dot text 2. So go ahead and thunk that in. And the same way that we set up the high score over is again the same way that we will set up the game high score. So you can actually just select this join block over and just copy and paste. Go ahead and thunk that in over And now we just need to update the text, which is just writing over here. We'll go here and we'll have it say game high score : game high score : Good, so now it should look like this. And then in the drop-down menu, of course, for this block, just select Global Game High Score. Global Game High Score. Nice work. You're doing a great job. Much better than when Amritha tries not to throw anything at Mike. Now, we need to tell Firebase, if the game high score changes because someone got a higher score, it should update the score. So type in when Firebase. And let's get the block that says when Firebase db1.jta changed do. So let's just move this block under the other blocks. And you know, we actually just did something very similar with these blocks over here. So we can just copy and paste them right into this block below. So just look at the screen, see what we're doing. Copy, paste, thunk, copy, paste, thunk. Nice work. There is one thing that we need to change though. Let's delete this value block because it came from the other block. And let's just get a value from this block over here. So let's get value, nice, thunk it in. Nice. All right, we're done with these guys. Now it's time to tell the image sprite, our good friend the sandwich, what to do. So again, we are going to be dragging our fingers across the screen to move the sandwich. So in the block options for image sprite, where is that? It's over. Yeah, let's go to image sprite. Get the block that says when image sprite 1 dot dragged. This fellow over here. Go ahead and drop that in. Now remember, your phone registers what touches the screen like an X and Y axis. So let's go back to the image sprite options and scroll down to where it says call image sprite 1 dot move to. Call image sprite 1 dot move to. You see this one? See how it has an opening for an X and a Y? Go ahead and thunk that in. Great work. Nice. So the x-axis moves like this, and we want the sandwich to be able to go to any point on the x-axis. So for x, we will just hover over the current x option, and we are going to get the current x block. Go ahead and thunk that into the x opening. Good show. And the y-axis moves like this. But for the y block, we don't want the sandwich going to any y location. And go ahead and type in image sprite, and select the block that says image sprite 1.y. Image sprite 1.y. Go ahead and thunk that in. Good for you. Now, when we were designing the app, we told the image sprite that its y-axis was at 340. And that's the block that we just put in. It just represents 340. And it's going to keep the y in one place, but it's going to move across the x-axis. Wow, you've done a lot of thunking so far. So why don't you pause the video now, just pause it, and take a quick break to go eat some cookies before the next video.